I gave my husband permission to F another woman. My husband Jay waited until we were watching TV on a random night to destroy our marriage. I want to sleep with other women, he said, and he didn't even pause the show when he said it. I turned to look at him thinking he was joking. He wasn't. His face was completely serious. I love you and I want to stay married to you, he continued. But I also want the freedom to be with other women sometimes. I think I deserve that. I felt something snap inside my chest, but it wasn't sadness. It was something colder. Something that told me this marriage died the second those words left his mouth. You want permission to cheat, I said slowly. It's not cheating if you say yes. He smiled at me. He really thought he was being reasonable by having this mature conversation with me instead of sneaking around. Other couples do this all the time, he added. We could do it too, if you're open-minded. I stared at him for a long time, trying to figure out how this was the same man I'd given 5 years of my life to. I'm open-minded, I said. His whole face lit up and he kissed me on the forehead. You're the coolest wife ever. I mean that. Thank you. I smiled at him and held his hand and let him think he'd won. But I was already planning his defeat. I started making calls that night looking for someone who could destroy a man from the inside out. I needed beautiful, crazy, and willing to ruin his life. Jay thought he married a pushover who would let him have his fun while she sat at home waiting. He had no idea he married someone who would make him regret ever opening his mouth. I'll update you guys after my plans. Something tells me this is about to get interesting. That night I lay in bed next to Jay while he snored peacefully. He had no trouble sleeping. Why would he? He just got permission from his wife to sleep with other women. His life was perfect. I stared at the ceiling for hours trying to figure out my next move. Divorce was obvious. I could file tomorrow and take half of everything and be done with him, but that didn't feel like enough. He would move on, find some other woman to charm, tell his friends his ex-wife was crazy and controlling and that's why he needed freedom. He would learn nothing. He would suffer nothing. And I would just be another bitter ex-wife starting over while he lived his best life. No. I needed him to lose more than a marriage. I needed him to lose his sanity, his peace, his sense of safety. I needed him to experience what it felt like to be trapped with someone who made his life miserable. And then I realized something. Jay wanted other women. So I would give him one. The wrong one. The kind of woman who seems perfect at first, and then slowly reveals herself to be an absolute nightmare. The kind of woman who doesn't let go. Who shows up everywhere. Who makes a man wish he had never spoken to her in the first place. I smiled in the dark for the first time since he opened his mouth. Jay wanted to play games. Fine. I would show him how games are really played. The next morning I called my friend Dana. Dana knew everyone. She was the kind of person who collected people and always had someone for whatever you needed. A good contractor. A cheap lawyer. A girl who could get you into any club in the city. I told her I needed someone specific. What kind of specific? She asked. Beautiful, I said. The kind of beautiful that makes men stupid. And a little bit crazy. The kind of crazy that doesn't show up right away, but once it does, you can't escape it. Dana was quiet for a second. What exactly are you planning? My husband wants to sleep with other women. I'm going to find him one he'll never forget. She laughed. Oh, I have some ideas. Let me make some calls. 2 days later, Dana sent me a list of 5 names. Women she knew who fit the profile. Women who had been burned by men before, and would love the chance to return the favor. I set up interviews at a coffee shop across town where nobody would recognize me. I told each of them to show up at different times. I wasn't sure what I was looking for exactly, but I figured I would know it when I saw it. The first woman was pretty, but too nervous. She kept apologizing for things that didn't need apologies. She would crack under pressure. The second woman was angry. Too angry. She started ranting about her ex before I even finished explaining what I needed. She would blow the whole thing up before Jay even got hooked. The third woman was too nice. She said she wasn't sure she could actually hurt someone even if they deserved it. I thanked her for her time and crossed her off the list. The fourth woman didn't show up at all. I was starting to think this plan was stupid, that I should just file for divorce and move on with my life. And then the fifth woman walked in. She was wearing a simple black dress and heels that clicked on the floor with every step. Every man in that coffee shop turned to look at her. She didn't notice them. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She sat down across from me and smiled. You must be Viola, she said. I'm Natalie. I knew within 30 seconds that I had found exactly what I was looking for. Natalie was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. The kind of beautiful that made you want to look away, but you couldn't. She had long dark hair and green eyes and a smile that could mean anything. But it wasn't just her looks. It was the way she talked. Calm. Controlled. Every word of hers was chosen carefully. Dana told me you have a husband problem, she said. Something like that. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about Jay and his request. About how he thanked me for being cool. About how he had no idea his cool wife was sitting in a coffee shop interviewing women to ruin his life. Natalie listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and crossed her legs. Men like your husband are my favorite kind, she said. They think they're so smart, so charming. They think they can have everything they want without consequences. She tilted her head slightly. I love showing them how wrong they are. I felt a chill run down my spine. The good kind. What happened to you? I asked. Who said anything happened to me? You don't hate men like this without a reason. Natalie smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Let's just say I had a Jay once. He taught me a lot about how men operate, and I've been returning the favor ever since. I believed her. This wasn't a woman who was pretending to be tough. This was a woman who had been through something and came out the other side sharper, colder, ready. I explained the plan. Seduce him at a bar. Make him think he hit the jackpot. Be fun and easy and perfect at first. Let him get comfortable. Let him brag to his wife about his amazing new situation. And then flip the switch. Go crazy. Show up everywhere. Text text constantly, threaten, cry, make his life so miserable he can't eat or sleep or think about anything except how to escape. How crazy do you want me to go? Natalie asked. I want him to regret ever meeting you. I want him to wish he had never asked me for permission in the first place. I want him to lose everything. Natalie nodded slowly. I can do that. There's one more thing, I said. When this is all over, I want to be there for the finale. I want him to know I did this. I want to see his face when he realizes his cool wife destroyed his entire life. Natalie smiled again. This time it reached her eyes. I like you, Viola. This is going to be fun. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of Jay. She studied it for a moment. He's cute, she said, in a boring kind of way. Men like this always think they're more interesting than they are. I gave her the address of the bar I knew he'd be at on Friday night around 9. He goes there with his friends every week. Friday it is. She walked out of that coffee shop and every man watched her leave. None of them knew they were looking at a weapon. But Jay was about to find out. I had my weapon loaded and ready. Natalie was gorgeous, manipulative, and couldn't wait to destroy a cheater. Jay was about to walk into that bar Friday thinking he was just some lucky guy about to have fun. He had no idea the woman waiting for him was handpicked by his wife. Friday came faster than I expected. I spent the whole day pretending everything was normal. I made dinner, watched TV with Jay, and laughed at his stupid jokes. And then around 8, he stood up and stretched and said he was going out with the guys. Have fun, I said. He kissed me on the cheek and walked out the door. He had no idea what was waiting for him. Natalie walked into the bar around 9 wearing a red dress that hugged every curve she had. Her heels were high and her hair was down and she looked like she owned the place. Jay was at his usual table with his friends drinking beer and laughing too loud. He noticed her the second she walked in. Every man in that bar noticed her, but she made eye contact with only one of them. She held Jay's gaze for exactly 3 seconds, and then looked away and walked to the bar. She ordered a martini and crossed her legs on the bar stool and waited. Jay lasted about 4 minutes before he was standing next to her. I don't think I've seen you here before, he said. I would have remembered. Natalie turned to face him and smiled slowly. That's your opening line? You would have remembered? I'm just saying you're not exactly forgettable. And you're not exactly subtle. She took a sip of her drink and looked him up and down. But I'll allow it. Jay grinned and leaned against the bar. I'm Jay. Natalie. Can I buy you another drink, Natalie? You can try to impress me with more than just drinks. Jay laughed and signaled the bartender. All right then. What does impress you? Confidence, honesty, a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to go after it. Well, lucky for you, I'm all 3 of those things. Are you now? She raised an eyebrow. Prove it. Jay spent the next hour trying to prove it. He told her about his job and made it sound more important than it was. He talked about his car and his apartment and the trip he took to Miami last year. Natalie listened and nodded and asked all the right questions. She made him feel fascinating. She laughed at his jokes like they were actually funny. She touched his arm when he said something she liked. And every time she touched him, Jay leaned in a little closer. So what do you do? He asked her eventually. I'm in freelance. I like the freedom. Freedom is good. I respect that. Do you? You seem like the type who plays it safe. Me? No way. I take risks all the time. Like what? Jay paused and she could see him trying to come up with something impressive. Like coming over here to talk to you. That was a risk. Was it though? You saw a woman sitting alone and you walked over. That's not a risk. That's just being a man with eyes. Okay, fine. What would you consider a risk? Natalie leaned in close enough that he could smell her perfume. Asking me to get out of here with you. That would be a risk. Jay's eyes went wide. Are you serious? I don't know. Are you brave enough to find out? He stared at her for a long moment and she could see the gears turning in his head. He was calculating the odds and weighing the options and trying to figure out if this was really happening. Let's go, he said. Natalie smiled and grabbed her purse. I thought you'd never ask. They didn't make it to his car before he kissed her. He pushed her against the wall outside the bar and kissed her like he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. Natalie kissed him back with equal intensity and ran her fingers through his hair. When they finally pulled apart, Jay was breathing heavy. My place or yours? He asked. Yours is too far. There's a hotel 2 blocks from here. How do you know where I live? I don't. I just know I can't wait that long. They checked into the hotel room and didn't leave until 2 in the morning. Jay drove home with a smile on his face that he couldn't wipe off.